Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm back today with another video. So, I came across a guitar that just had to be featured on this channel. And I'm just going to cut right to the chase. So, let's talk about one of the greatest guitarists of all time, and one of the most influential, Eddie Van Halen. I remember when I was a kid, driving in the car with my dad, and he would play the original Van Halen album on cassette on the stereo in the car. And I was always so excited to get to listen to that because I'd never heard anything like it before. Now, when I was a kid, this album was old by the time I was a kid. So I know that people had a similar experience when it was new, and people still probably have a similar experience today when they hear that for the first time. I'll never forget when I heard things like Ice Cream Man and Show Your Love and Jamie's Crying and Ain't Talking About Love and all those songs on that album, and then the many more that I listened to as I went on. One of the things about Eddie Van Halen that made him such an enigma wasn't just what he played and how he played it, but what he played it on. Now, when he first started out and when people started to realize who he was known for his striped guitars. He had a black one with yellow. He had the red one with the white and black stripes. He had a white one with black stripes. He had all these different colors of them. And that was what he was known for in the beginning. He later modified them to be completely crazy, like having a Gibson humbucker but slanted because it wouldn't quite fit in the body that he had. The tone knob not working, so just throwing it into the cavity and screwing it down. And then putting in a new invention, the Floyd Rose, into his guitar and screwing it top mounted directly, as opposed to today where there's usually a cavity underneath it. So he was known for having these really weird, really crazy looking guitars, and that was part of his image, and it was part of what shaped him as a guitarist, sort of like how the SG with Angus Young and the Stratocaster with Jimi Hendrix and the SG with Tony Iommi and the Les Paul with Jimmy Page. You know, they all have that thing. For Eddie, for the longest time, it was that Strat-looking guitar that had the crazy paint job. So he went through his career using things like that. He also used an Ibanez Destroyer, and then later on, he got a deal with Kramer. And he would promote their guitars, and he was a Kramer guitarist for the longest time in the 80s. A little bit later on, he got a deal with Ernie Ball for 5150 strings, his own strings, and there was a good relationship with them. In the late 80s, early 90s, Eddie had a falling out with Kramer because Kramer, when they would sell the guitars with the 5150 strings on them, they were misrepresenting the number they were actually selling, so that they wouldn't have to pay the royalties and the commissions to Ernie Ball and Eddie Van Halen. So he broke up with them, and he went to Ernie Ball, and he said, look guys, I want to make my own guitar. I want to design my own guitar. So he had these sketches that he'd made, and it was kind of like a cross between a Telecaster and a Les Paul body. And he sent the sketches into some of their designers over at Ernie Ball, and they made it happen for him. So the Ernie Ball Music Man guitar, the Edward Van Halen model, came out in 1991. This guitar had a maple top. It had a baywood or basswood body. It was a little lighter. Usually you have something heavier like poplar or alder, but this was a baywood, basswood body. It came with either a Floyd Rose or a hardtail bridge, and it had a maple neck with a 10-inch radius, so a little bigger than a Fender, but a little less than something like a Gibson. The headstock was 4 on one side, 2 on the other, and it had custom DiMarzio humbuckers, 3-way switch, and it had a single knob for volume, but it was labeled as tone. It was kind of an in-joke with Eddie Van Halen. He said that when you move the volume up or down, it changes the tone, so it was labeled as tone. So he made this guitar with them for about 5 years or so. He then left them and went to Peavey, took basically this same model to them. Then in the early to mid-2000s, he left Peavey, took this design to Fender. Fender now has the EVH brand, and they still sell this guitar today. However, Ernie Ball did not stop making this guitar. They just changed the name. They changed it to the Axis, Music Man Axis. So they continued to make this guitar, but they decided, we really want to compete with Squier and Epiphone and some of these cheaper guitars. What if we made one that looks like one of our ultra premium guitars, but it's actually made with cheaper parts and is cheaper? So they did that. They licensed the body and neck designs to various factories overseas across the world. All of these factories were making the same guitars, and they would send them to Ernie Ball. They'd be stamped with the headstock. OLP was the brand of the guitar, which stands for Original Licensed Products. So the one we're going to talk about today is the OLP MM1. And as you can guess, it stands for Original Licensed Product, Music Man 1. There was also an OLP MM1 FR. The FR stands for Floyd Rose, because it had a Floyd Rose. The MM1 just had a 6-screw Strat-style bridge. It had a maple neck with a compound radius that started around 10 and went down to about 16, best I could find. It does have a bound basswood body with a maple top. Some of them actually had flamed or quilted tops, but the cheaper ones had a veneer, so it just looks like it from a distance. And when you get really close, you can tell that it's not real, but it still looks very good. And they did the headstock too, which they didn't have to do, but they did it anyway. Because of the way that these were made, they were sent to factories all over Asia and different parts of the world. So, as we know, and as we've discussed on this channel before, quality control varies in one factory at times. But imagine the quality control between all of these factories. Quality control didn't exist at all. Some of these guitars were made amazingly well, and some people say they played as good as a Wolfgang or as a Music Man Axis or any of these Eddie Van Halen like luxury guitars played just as good, but others played absolutely horrendous. And this is because of the quality control. The quality control wasn't consistent. Some of the factories made them really well, and even some of the people in some of the factories made them really well. Everyone else didn't. So quality control was all over the place. And I've seen stories all over the internet from people claiming that they have an amazing instrument, and others saying that they're not even worth it for firewood. They hate them. Most of those people are purists. That's okay if you're a purist, but they don't want anything to do with it because it's not a real Music Man or a real Wolfgang. Now, in the mid to late 2000s, the license with OLP ended. They stopped making it altogether, and in 2009, Ernie Ball created the Sterling brand, which was a real Squier or Epiphone competitor. In-house, factory was the same for all of them. That brand still exists today, and they still make the Sterling Axis today. That is the same guitar, essentially, with a few modifications over the years, that came out all the way back in 1991 as the Music Man Edward Van Halen model. We don't know why the OLP deal ended, and we probably won't ever know. But it was probably because the quality control was everywhere. And that's that. So that's where these guitars came from. So, I was on GuitarCenter.com a few days ago, and I go there pretty much every day. I love looking at the guitars, all electric guitars sorted lowest to highest, because a lot of times you'll find stuff that's either mislabeled or not valued properly. Like I've seen Epiphone Les Paul Studios, like the new ones that have the proper headstocks, the inspired by Gibsons, being sold for like $150 because they're pricing them like a Studio LT, which is not even close to the same thing. So I check all the time to try to find a deal. And I saw a listing for an OCP single cut guitar. And I looked at the picture, what do you know? It's not OCP, it's OLP. This was one of those officially licensed replicas, I guess you could say, of the Music Man. And I'd have always wanted one of those. Since I was young listening to Van Halen, obviously everyone wants the striped guitar, right? We all do. But I also really wanted the Wolfgang because Eddie designed it himself. I always found that he was my favorite guitarist, and to this day he is still my favorite guitarist. And with his passing, these things have gone up in value like you wouldn't believe. The real Wolfgangs and the real Music Mans and the real Axis guitars are going for way more than they probably should because he's passed away. The ones that came out while he was alive are worth even more. The OLP, while it has a terrible reputation, it's got the shape, and it is designed by Eddie Van Halen himself, even if he wasn't affiliated with the company at the time that it came out. So those have gone up in value as well. But the employee who took this guitar in and listed it online, because they listed it as an OCP, it was not found by the average user. You'd actually have to search by price and not type in a model. They had it listed for $40. I didn't even think. I looked at a few pictures, made sure it was a real OLP. Look, I can't imagine why you would make a counterfeit OLP. And it looked real, bought it. Came today. Here it is. OLP MM1. The specs that I mentioned hold true with this. This is the one with the 6 screws, Strat style tremolo. It did come with a tremolo arm, which is really nice. And a quick note on that, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there was a time when Squier was making Squier Strats, and it had a really weird sized tremolo arm. You couldn't use a regular American or Mexican Fender arm, and the average Squier arm wouldn't fit. It was a really odd size. This is that odd size. But they even included that. I mean, sometimes you'll pay $1,000 for a guitar from there and they won't send you the tremolo arm, and usually it's not a problem, you just buy one. But this was a weird one, and there it is. So yeah, it's real. And now we are going to put it on the bench, and we're going to see if we can find out all of its secrets. So here it is, the OLP MM1. So let's start on the body. So, I don't know if you can tell, but this is that veneer I was talking about. It looks really good from about 2 feet away, but when you get closer, you can see that it's pretty obviously a veneer. Here's the thing though, I would rather have a veneer that looks like this than a plain color, but that's just me. That's why they make guitars in different colors. So that's the finish. The truss rod adjustment is on the bottom of the neck, which is really cool. You've got these 2 humbuckers. These are Gibson style, PAF style humbuckers. Probably just your standard import fare humbuckers. Probably nothing special here. Here's your bridge with your 6 screws. Here's the tremolo. It's got your 3-way switch. It's missing the little nub. I don't know if it ever had one. The pictures of these that I found online, it didn't have one, but maybe there was a little like metal cap that's missing now. I don't know. And then here's the knob. It says volume, but we're gonna fix that as part of this video. The body is bound. Let me move down here, as you can see. And it actually is done really well. Like, this is a really high quality one, as far as I can tell. Standard strap buttons, nothing to write home about there. Let's flip it over now. So here's the back. It's got a very skinny block. Now normally I would say, oh no, I have to change that, but you're going to be doing some pretty heavy dive bombs with this one. And I've found that the skinnier block, obviously because it weighs less and it's smaller, you can actually get more extreme bends with the tremolo arm. So I think I'm just going to leave it, unless we have issues with it. You can see that it's screwed in with 3 screws to the bridge plate. The back cover was missing. That's the only negative thing I can say about this guitar so far, and I think that's pretty remarkable. So here's the back cover, and then here's the neck plate. Has an inspection sticker, and there you can see OLP. Interestingly enough, this guitar does not have a serial number anywhere. There's no serial number on the back of the headstock either, but you can see headstock design trademark licensed by Ernie Ball exclusively to OLP. We know it was made in China. That's all we know. Tuners look okay. I mean, they're not those horrible diamond trapezoid tuners, so that's a bonus. We'll get inside here in a minute, but first let's flip it over and look at the neck. So here is the fingerboard, maple.
I will say the back of the neck is oiled very well and glossy, but it's not sticky. It feels like a Mexican Fender neck. That's the best thing I can think to compare it to. Fret ends are not sharp at all, but honestly, I've yet to find an old guitar that has sharp fret ends if it's been played, because playing it will file it down. Maybe this one was just made really well. I don't know. And let's go to the headstock. There you can see the 4+2, and there's that OLP logo, original licensed product. And the headstock also has that veneer, and I think that looks really, really good. So, the strings that came on it look like they've been on here for about 5 years. I also noticed that the saddles don't make any sense. The saddle heights. I don't know how well you can see that, but they don't make any sense. The high E string is way too high. It's got some action issues that I'm going to have to take care of. Also, the bridge is floating. I don't like that personally. Neither did Eddie, by the way. He always surface mounted his tremolos so that they laid flat and he could only go down with them. At least in the beginning, that's what he would do. So I think I'm going to tighten the screw on the bottom to bring that down a little bit. But yeah, the strings are all corroded. I mean, I tried to play this to see how the neck felt, and it cut up my fingers pretty bad. I mean, you can see right there how corroded they are, so we're going to need to change these strings. Also, check this out. The nut is loose in there, so we're going to have to do something about that. And then the last thing is the switch, it goes out every once in a while, so while you're playing, it'll just stop working, and it only happens on the bridge position. So let's take the back cover off and see if we see any broken solder or anything like that. I'm also just curious to see what the pot is and what switch they used. So let's flip it over. I'm not sure what to expect here, but let's see. I got it off, but I haven't cheated. I haven't looked yet. When we do stuff on this channel, we do it together. So let's take a look. About what I expected in there. We've got a import switch with a very small alpha pot. I think it says 350. Or no, B500. So 500K. And if I look at it looks like the solder is okay in there. I'm not seeing any issues there. So I'm gonna have to figure out. I mean, it does, if you look there, it looks like they burned it. The pot might be having a problem. They really went to town there. But this does look stock to me. Like, this doesn't look like somebody got in here and did this. This looks like it was done from the factory like that. I was really hoping I would find a serial number in here, because I want to know when mine was made, but I don't see a serial number. There's not one on the cover either. So, alright. I guess the only other place to check for that information would be under the neck plate. So, let's go ahead now and take the strings off, and we'll check under the neck plate. I got the screws out, and I've not looked yet, so let's see. Neck plate, blank. Nothing underneath. Maybe there's something on the neck itself or in the cavity. Nothing on the neck. And nothing in the neck pocket. So the only other place they could have put the serial number is in the pickup cavity, and I'm not willing to do that. So, bummer. I guess we will never know when this guitar was made. I realized that we might as well take the pickups out because I want to know what they are. And they're just blank. Nothing to be found here. And no serial number again. Well, I guess we'll have to check the other side. Got this one out. Let's check it. Same thing. So they just didn't put a serial number on this guitar anywhere. That really stinks. Well, that's okay. Let's get the humbucker screwed back in and see if we can get this bridge adjusted. So we're not going to adjust the bridge just yet because we don't have any strings on it. What we are going to do is we're going to put the nut in. I had to take it out. It was so loose that it just fell out. So we're going to glue the nut back in. Okay, so I have my glue. I'm going to use this old guitar string to just kind of put some glue in that slot. This is just craft glue. And I I taped here just in case because I don't want to get glue on the fingerboard. So I'm just going to get some glue on my string. And I'm just going to put it in the nut slot. That, just a little bit. I haven't decided if I want to upgrade this nut yet, so I'm not going to go crazy with the glue. I'm just going to put enough that it'll stay in there. And then if I want to upgrade it later, it won't be impossible to take out. That should do it. Okay, so then you take your nut and you squish it down in there. Make sure that it's exactly where it needs to go. There we go. While that's drying, I'm going to go ahead now and clean the fingerboard with my Proline lemon oil. I think that looks a lot better. Now I'm going to polish the headstock and polish the body, and then I'm going to tighten the tuners and string it. While we're here, I took the volume knob off, and just like Eddie, we are going to put a tone knob. There we go. That's a reflector knob that I had laying around, and I think it'll do great there. It's all strung up and ready to go. Put a red strap on it. And I did not actually end up having to adjust the bridge. I guess they had like 11s or 12s on it before, because it was pulling with the strings that came on it. I also adjusted the pickup height. I used this gauge. So for Gibson style, which I guess I would call this a Gibson style if I had to call it something, you want 1.6 for the bridge and 2.4 for the neck. So I did that. I just laid that there and raised the pickup until it matched. So there we go. It's ready to go. The nut is solid in there. The glue held, and now it's time to plug it in and see how it sounds. I have not heard this yet, so I have no idea. My reaction will be the first time I hear it. Okay, so here it is. It's a looker, isn't it? I like the way it looks, honestly, and the OLP on the headstock doesn't bother me. But it's time. Let's see what it sounds like. I think that sounds really, really good. I love that. It was made to play stuff like that, wasn't it? Let's see what the neck sounds like.
Sounds pretty good too. I'm not having that switch issue that I was having earlier. So I did plug it in to make sure that the pickups worked, and that's how I knew there was an issue. So let's go to something a little bit more over. Wow. Try another setting here. So the high strings are out a little bit, but these are brand new strings. The fact that I use the tremolo like that and it's still working pretty good is kind of remarkable if you ask me. Damn. Well, I think it was amazing. For what I paid for it and the story of how it got into my hands and for what it is, my goodness, it's amazing. I mean, it plays every bit as good as it looks, and it feels amazing. The lead is so easy to do up here. The chording is so easy to do down here. The weight feels good. There's no neck dive. It looks cool. The humbuckers are amazing. I love the way that they sound. And I don't know what else to say. I know, like I said at the very beginning with the quality control, that some of these aren't very good, right? Some of them are going to be bad because they made them in all different factories. But I took a chance on this one at a price I couldn't pass up. And yeah, I mean, I highly recommend this. If you see one of these hanging on the wall at Guitar Center or a pawn shop or something, OLP can be legit, and you should pick it up off the wall and you should try it. And if it feels anything like this one does, take that thing home. I mean, even with the stock pickups, it's an amazing guitar. I love it. I'm going to gig this. I'm going to gig this on Saturday. The day that you're watching this video, I'm going to be gigging this that night. So, I love it. Highly recommend it. OLP MM1, oh yeah. If you find one, try it. If you find one at a ridiculously cheap price, take the risk because it's worth it. If it can be this good, I think it's worth playing, honestly. Well, that's all I had to say about this. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please follow me on Twitter, Big Jake Music. Please follow me on Instagram, bigjake.music. Join the Discord server. The link is in the description if you want to talk about guitar, gear, etc. Thank you again. I very much appreciate you. Thank you for watching, and rest in peace, Edward Van Halen.